Hi, mates. Welcome back to L. Scott Fishing and Eats. Everybody had a great Father's Day. Everybody enjoyed their time, got some fishing in, and hopefully they took their kid fishing on Father's Day. However, some of us were out on the Potomac River this weekend and actually pre-fishing before the weekend. It was really had a great time. Toyota Invitation. I'm sorry, not Toyota. It's the old Porsche circuit. The Tackle Warehouse Invitationals were in town out of Smallwood, Maryland, in Mattawoman Creek over the week, really all of last week because of pre-fishing. And so it was really great to be out during the pre-fishing and then being able to take it in with 150 anglers 2 days, and then they cut to 50 on for the final day. And it's really great. One of the best things is when you design baits, it's a really great idea. It doesn't matter whether or not they're your own design baits or there's some of the guys that you know, some of the other custom bait makers that you may give baits out on loan, catch fish. It's just a really cool thing. And so in that regard, it was a pretty big weekend for some new coloration patterns, like some river herring and some perch patterns that are really that were designed specifically for the Potomac and for me and some people to actually throw on, and plus a shad pattern for the Occoquan shad run and stuff like that. Kind of coming up with some new patterns and stuff. So that's always really cool. And to take that a next step with some other variation of colorations, as well as some new smaller size swim baits. Got the glide bait coming in a different size. We've got a whole new blank being designed from the scratch. Okay, so that's going to be pretty cool on the swim bait front. But again, it's kind of a new art form. Okay, it was kind of interesting over the weekend. I did not want to because it's an event, man, and for some people it's an event. You could tell some people struggle a little bit, and they just had that edge that you don't necessarily want to be approaching. Some people had good days, some people had bad days. So usually during an event is not really a time. Although I was really interested to see a couple other guys that I know are really big glide bait and swim bait anglers on the Tackle Warehouse Invitational Series. How they fared, throwing what they were throwing. Sponsored a lot of times with some of these guys, but it was really great to get the feedback. Really great to see some quality bass caught in this tournament on baits that you had a hand in. So that is always awesome. The other thing was when you're there, like I was there as a fan, okay, more or less, and you're sitting around, you get to hear all of the scoop, all of the gossip, all of the things going down. And a lot of times it's MLF people, okay, doing the setup. It's media. It's the crews that do the media, and you're there for hours before weigh-in if you're at any ramp, okay, if you ever go to an event. It's a lot of downtime between the setup, time anglers leave in the morning, till the time they get back at 2, 2:30, 3, 3:30, right? And so there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And pretty much it all that I heard over the weekend, it all had to do with Cayuga, okay? And I had a guy on TikTok kind of hit me up how come you haven't talked about your fantasy picks on Cayuga? And I briefly did in one of the videos, but I really didn't talk much about the Cayuga event because it was sketch. I'm not the only one saying that, okay? There are plenty of people that are a hell of a lot more attached to the people at MLF that are actually talking about this now. And most of us just saw it as fans on TV, on MLF Now. That's sketch, man, because you know the rules after a while, right? And as fans, when we know the rules, you would expect that the anglers knew the rules. And so the question becomes, did they know the rules and then just evade the rules? Because remember, on MLF, in terms of sight fishing, you are required to show the official your fish, okay? So he can verify that the fish was actually hooked in the mouth and not on the side or any other way, right? Well, we know by video, countless videos during the Cayuga event, that just wasn't the case. And now, late in the day, I think it was late in the day yesterday, when we learned two things late in the day yesterday, at least I did, because I was out at the Potomac River. So I don't know when exactly they got released. One, we learned that Crete was not fishing in the next stage event at the BBT, and Mike McClellan, who was at the Toyota warehouse, Tackle Warehouse Invitationals, was going to get that spot for the next BBT event. We learned that. And we also learned that there were 4 anglers being investigated from the Cayuga event. Shocker. Now, what does that mean? It may mean nothing. Okay? Because that's the reality that you have to understand. We've seen this before. On the one hand, all of those bass that were caught multiple times off of beds, meaning the same fish caught more than once in one of the given days or periods of groups for that particular event, is good for ratings. It's good for viewership. Right? When you saw the poundage coming in from Cayuga, everybody was like sounding the alarm. Van Dam was in early on, right? And then it was a changeover in the next group. And then by the week, okay? And so it was like a big deal, like the size fish being caught. Well, some of the guys were catching a 5-pounder more than once. Okay, that's the reality. There's plenty of videos out there, okay? And so that's really why I didn't talk about the fantasy picks, because they may not, that field, or there's, I guess the checks, the money is supposed to be being sent now, except for 4 of the anglers are having their catches and video and all of that investigated. Okay. So, and pretty much people can figure out who those 4 anglers are. I'm not here to bash, 4 professional anglers. I will tell you this, I think, and I didn't think about it until late yesterday, I think 2 of those anglers were at the Potomac River. I think 2 of those anglers are Matt Becker and Sheffield. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Apologies to if those aren't 2 of the 4. But I think those are the 2 that have gotten the most just backlash on the interwebs, okay, over that event. All right. And they were both at Tackle Warehouse Invitationals. And it dawned on me afterward, like, because I was sitting out. I mean, I literally saw those guys, right? Hanging out. Like, I often wonder what it would be like if someone actually put a microphone in front of them. Like, that somebody actually interviewed them. Like, not MLF. Like, that someone just walked up to them from the local people, and and then asked them flat out, hey, would you like to make any comment on the Cayuga event? Hey, so there's been a lot of turmoil about you and your catches and your videos on the interwebs. You have any comment about, I mean, again, there comes to a point where somebody needs to hold people accountable and not make excuses for them. Okay? Because that is freaking the epitome of cheating. It is. And here's the other thing about it, and I haven't heard anybody say this, and I know a lot of people have covered this probably since, because it's now, all last week. What about the officials? Some officials should be losing their jobs. If you were on that boat and you scored a fish that you didn't actually verify that it was hooked in the mouth and they were sight fishing, isn't that your job? Isn't that your job? Now, I understand how tough that job is, okay? Don't get me wrong. I'm not bashing on judges. I'm not bashing on, tournament officials, the zebras in the boat. But that is their job. They need to be investigated as well. Because you had one of the officials said that he said something in I want to say a statement, but said something about, no, he saw that the fish was hooked legally, But then the video was like, there's no way in hell that guy, if it's the same official, saw that fish, because you can't even see it on camera. It never gets lifted above the side of the boat. Okay? And that angler is messing with that hook. And they're not supposed to touch the hook until after they show, according to what I've been told, the official, that it's actually hooked properly. And then they could take the hook out, bag it out, and do the weights and all that stuff. So if you're an official, so 8 people should be investigated right now. The 4 anglers and the 4 officials. They should be all investigated. And if they are found, and I believe they will be found, to be in violation of the rule and the integrity of the rule, and they committed the infraction, they should be found guilty of violating the sight fishing rule as well as the other rule, bed fishing rule, and all that. Okay, not supposed to count or weigh in the same fish on a single day. Okay, that's one, and then the other one is basically when you're sight fishing, you have to show the official your actual catch with the hook in the mouth, right? So there's two things going on there. Here's the other thing: we didn't have that problem on the Potomac River. Tackle Warehouse Invitationals are a weigh-in event. Do we need to go back to weigh-in events? That's the question a lot of people need to be asking themselves right now. Do we want to go back to weigh-in events? Because if guys are going to cheat, and if you listen to other people who are a lot smarter than me, have a lot more knowledge than me about the professional series, this shit's been going on for a while. And cheating as well as violation of rules is escalating across the series, across the board in professional fishing. It just is. Time and time again. And at some point, someone's going to need to be made an example of. Okay? That's the reality. MLF's got that opportunity now to make an example, because this is blatant. This is on video. Okay? And the other thing about it that gets lost in all this is, if the officials are on board and there's cameras on board, you can sure as heck bet that there's location services on board, because those cameras, okay, are sending like a signal for the live stream, for MLF Now, and for the guys in the studio, right? They can go back and know exactly where those fish were caught. And if they were caught in the same place exactly more than once, that's another definitive fact of evidence, right? But not only that, but you had guys on MLF Now, commentators commenting about something being shady, like not on the up and up, like, okay, whether it be Marty, whether it be JT, whoever it was, like making comments like that's not going to be scoreable, and then it ends up being scoreable. I mean, people got to take a hard look at that, mates. Like, the evidence of that is kind of, I don't see how you argue against it. I don't see how any angler of those 4 can argue against the video, like what they were doing, about intentionality or whatever. And I'm going to take it a step further. I don't know if anybody else has said this. Again, I'm a nobody. I'm just a schmuck on YouTube. I'm a fan of fishing. I just love fishing. Okay? They should be kicked off the tour. All 4 of them should get kicked off the BBT tour, the Pro Tour, for this year, for the remainder of the year, or maybe next year. And they should be forced to go back through and work their way all the way back up to the Bass Pro Tour. That's what should happen. You want to send a message? Don't just take their money away. They weren't going to get that money anyway. Some of those guys probably weren't going to get that money anyway. We're talking about some people that didn't place out in Cayuga, that are like the people outside the top 10, okay, weren't doing anything wrong, right? They were doing it the right way, and they didn't place in the top 10, right? Okay, so those guys that cheated to get into the top 10, to get that check, Okay? You can't just not give them the check. I don't think. Because that's not a punishment. It really isn't. Because they didn't earn the check. They cheated. They didn't earn the check. You didn't really harm them. Because if they hadn't cheated, they probably weren't fishing on the last day. Right? So you didn't really hurt them. They're walking away with that tournament with what they probably would have walked away with anyway, which is 0. Okay? It may be a blemish to their name, but it'll be forgotten, right? Like so many other times where there have been instances where stuff's happened. I say send them back down to the Tackle Warehouse Invitationals, right? And make them earn their way back into the Bass Pro Tour. And move the people that I saw in the Invitationals on the Potomac River that are freaking just legit doing it the right way. Bring their top 4 anglers up. Or the best, whatever, however they do it. I know when someone retires or someone can't, like right now, someone can't fish an event, he gets off, they bring somebody up in the order of which they would have qualified for the Bass Pro Tour. Just take the top 4 guys right now in qualifying after Mike McClellan, because I guess one of the guys, it went to one other guy and he couldn't fish the Pro Tour, so then it went to Mike. Well, the next 4 guys, find out if they want to fish the rest of the Bass Pro Tour this season. I bet they do. I bet they would love that shot. And take those people, 2 of which possibly are already fishing Tackle Warehouse, so they can't fish, tell them they can't fish any more Bass Pro Tour this year. That's your penalty. We're going to take your money, and we're also going to keep you from fishing the Pro Tour for the remainder of this season and maybe next year, and make them go back. Tell me that would not send a message to young people, right? And that's what we're talking about, the future of the sport. What message does the MLF want to send to the collegiate MLF, to the brand new high school MLF anglers? All that. If you really, really want to curb cheating, ultimately you have to make examples out of the cheaters. You do. And to tell people, we don't care what your name is. We don't care who you are. We don't care who your sponsors are. You totally violated the integrity of our sport and our rules, and you did it on purpose, and you did it with intentionality. Okay? That's cheating. Knowing the rules, hiding your fish from the camera, okay? A lot of this stuff that's going out there, again, by smarter people than I am, that know this kind of stuff, this event has got an asterisk, an asterisk, and an asterisk next to it. It's not the best MLF smallmouth crush event now because of the sketch. And it was not just, those people. There's plenty of people on TikTok showing the videos. Plenty of people on YouTube and their live streams. Plenty of people that you can check out. Check out Luke Duncan. He did a podcast. You can check out Alan Johnson. You can check out all these people, okay, that have their own podcasts, live streams, and TikTok channels that have been on this for a week now, to where MLF has got to address this fact. Okay, that there's video evidence that shows anglers violating the rules, and audio of anglers saying, I'm going to go back and catch that same fish later on in the afternoon. Like, you can't do that. That's a violation of the rules. So, does the MLF have integrity? I think so. Does the MLF generally try to get it right? I think so. But these 4 anglers have put the MLF in a very, very bad pickle. I would say a very sour pickle, because of what they're going to have to do to reclaim their brand if they don't do anything. If they make the mistake of just not covering it, okay, and just kind of hoping it goes away, moving on to the next event, right? Next event, I think, is Champlain coming up. I think Champlain is a I don't know if that's a Bass Pro Tour event or I think it's a Toyota Series event. That's the next event this weekend coming up. Okay, so they can move on and try and let it. And then fans are who are the most irate right now. Fans. I don't know. The other anglers are probably, pissed, but they're not going public for rightful purposes. They've got their own brands, their own sponsors. They don't want to go negative. But if you were at the Smallwood, you could hear the chirping. of people having their opinion, but they're not going on no TikTok live. They're not going on a live stream or a podcast talking about it. Okay. But they kind of know what should happen. And you could kind of see people, you know, like you could kind of see the tension a little bit with some people. And again, I just posed the question, what if a local guy or gal with a microphone from a local channel was covering the event and just walked over to those guys and were like, hey, you care to comment on the Cayuga event? You care to comment on site? What would their on camera, what would their response have been? Right? Probably would have learned whether or not they actually knew, right? Body behavior, demeanor, probably would have learned a lot about whether or not they actually felt and knew they were violating rules or not. Hard to lie when you're on camera, okay? It's hard to, like, you know, people can read from your body language and everything whether or not you think you're telling the truth. It's a totally different situation if you're just putting out a Facebook post or an Instagram post about your week at Cayuga Lake, where you control it. It's different when someone's asking you questions. And that's something that actually hasn't really existed, I don't think, in MLF or Bass, really, because they cover it. They have their own coverage. They have their own kind of media, and they put out what they want to put out. And sometimes there's some local media that does a little spot about the event or whatever like that. But what if there was actual, like, somebody from, right, legit news organizations, I don't know, or legit, you know, 100,000+ followed channels or whatever, podcaster or live streamer or whatever, who's asking freaking questions. Now they could be like, piss off. I'm like, piss off. I don't piss off. But then that says a lot about the angler, right? And what are the, because that person would air that and be like, great, sponsors, here's your sponsored angler telling, you know, a reporter or a podcaster or whatever to piss off on a video feed, right? They can do whatever they want. I'm just saying, we don't really have that right now. So we don't really know. All we have to go by is the video and then what the interpretation is going to be from MLF about the video, right? About all the videos. We're not going to see all the evidence that MLF sees unless MLF decides to step up and be like, you know what, here it all is. Here's all the stuff that we used to determine that these 4 anglers violated the integrity of our rules, and therefore, this is the punishment. Right? I mean, and they show everybody the videos, and they show why. Use it, in my opinion, this should be used as a learning example, a teachable moment, as they say these days, in the fishing world, for young people, and guys on the BFL, and guys in the Bass Opens, and guys, you know, Bass Nation, and guys trying to work their way up to get to this level, that this is what not to do. Okay? I think it would go a long way, you know, and I think that needs to be more than just taking a check away from people who wouldn't have gotten a check otherwise. There needs to be another layer to it. And I'm not about trying to take someone's livelihood or try to promote someone's livelihood being taken, and except for the fact that if they are found to have been violating the rule, that's a big deal. The intentionality of that is meant to defraud other anglers of a check. It's not a simple, to me, it's far more extreme than a Keith Poche violation, okay, of taking your boat somewhere you shouldn't have pushed an envelope or pushed a gray area of a rule. It is so much further down the line than that, because people did it more than once, and people telegraphed that they were going to do it and that they were doing it, right? That's the stupidity of that. And so another thing could be, let's punish stupidity. Like, again, can't make those statements that you're going to go out and catch the same fish that you caught this morning and then go out and catch it, right? Like, and then act like you didn't know, you don't know what's going on. So that's just my take. I mean, it's nuts, but again, didn't have that problem on the Potomac River this weekend. Why? Because you can only bring one fish to the scales, right? 5 fish. Can't bring the same fish twice to the scale and weigh them at a Tackle Warehouse Invitational, right? And so maybe therein lies the next lesson. Conservation is conservation, and we're trying to get as far down that line as we want, and we want MLF to continue with its catch weigh release. But if we can't trust anglers to do the right thing and to not cheat, how can that survive if we have another Cayuga? How can that survive? They're going to have to go back to weigh-ins or start holding officials as accountable as you hold your anglers and never allow them to officiate again. Like, that's the reality of that. That's where that punishment needs to come, because it's not just the anglers. Those officials allowed those anglers to score those fish. So they are part of the violation. Okay? And I don't know if anybody else is saying that, but I'm saying it. Because it takes two to tango, okay, when it comes to something like that. If the official had said, you did not show me that with a hook in the mouth, I'm not going to score it. And I know people don't want to do that. I know officials are fans too. But when you're an official first. And that's what should have happened, right? That's what, we all watched the video. We didn't see him show the fish to the official. Maybe that's a technicality, but that's what's stated in the rules. And so the official should know the rules, and the angler should know the rules. And if they don't, and they violate the rules, maybe both of them should be punished, right? I'm just saying. I know it's hard to find officials. I understand that. But again, you're only as good as your rules. You're only as good as your enforcement. I mean, that's the way I look at it, all these events. Doesn't matter whether it's MLF, Bass, NPFL, KBF, Hobie, Bassmasters, Kayak. It doesn't matter whether it's kayak fishing or boater fishing. You're only as good as your rule enforcement. You're only as good as the integrity that you're willing to have with your rules. Okay? And if you don't have any, you don't have any. But expect fans will at some point start to tune out. They will. At some point, they'll be like, okay, the game's rigged. Okay? The game's rigged. And they'll start to tune out. More and more people will talk about it. More and more respected people on the interwebs, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram will talk about the hypocrisy of it all, the double standard of how some people are treated this way, some people are treated that way. But in this case, there's 4. So would all 4 not have to get treated the same? Like, how could you punish 4 of them differently? Depending on what their rules infraction are? Seems to me like that's going to be a hard, again, sour pickle for MLF. Just glad we didn't have any of that at the Tackle Warehouse Potomac River event here for Maryland. Again, great event, 50 pounds. I came in way under what I thought the catch would be. I was basing it on the Bass Nation Series event, but both Bass Nation Series a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and Tackle Warehouse were about even on par for the fish caught, the limits, and the winning weight. So kudos to everybody at Bass Nation as well as the Tackle Warehouse Invitational. Hopefully we'll see some of those guys get elevated, and we'll see some of these guys who actually cheated at Cayuga be punished and be sent back down to the lower ranks of MLF and make them earn their way back to the Bass Pro Tour. All right, mates, I'll see you on the other side.